Morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Dr. Polk. We have welcome, by the way, to the July 11th Kankakee County full board meeting. Today's invocation is from Aaron Dunhill.
Lord, thank you for another day. Thank you for a lovely day outside. But thank you for the opportunities to come in here to work together to keep moving this county forward in the way that it needs to be done, it should be done, Lord. So you bless the work that we do here today and as we go out beyond. Amen.
Thank you. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Hess, Mr. Tholen, Mrs. Polk,
Present.
Mr. Snipes, Mr. Seroy, Mrs. Weber, Mrs. Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico, Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Swanson, Mr. Featherling, Mr. Dunhill, Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, Mr. Kirkstra, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Smith, Mr. Alexander Hildebrand,
Present.
Ms. Foster, Ms. Andrade, Ms. Armour Earps, Mr. Ashcraft, Ms. Monday, Ms. Ripmanick-Emmy, Mr. Scanlon, Ms. Turner, Mr. Wheeler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
And we have a quorum today. I have no request for public commentary. Is there anybody in the back that would like public commentary? Alrighty, moving on then. No vacancy appointments. We're going to hold the presentation till next month when our guest of honor can be here. So it just was supposed to be a surprise, and that gentleman got called out. So we'll take that next month. I expect him to know in 10 minutes because that's probably be a worst kept secret. But I will say that we appreciate Bob Gessner. If we're going to honor him, he needs to be here for that. So that's we appreciate the work that he does. We have certificates of appreciation. 15 years in corrections. Tyler Fox, Adam Granger, Brant Kimmery, Alex Ramirez, and Chad Ruckman. So we appreciate them for their service to the county. And so we'll move on to minutes of the last meeting. June 13th, 2023. Is there a motion there, Mr. Scanlon? Mr. Hunter with the second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, aye. Same sign. Motion carries. Under Claims Committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your Committee on County Claims would beg leave to report they have examined the following claims presented and recommend payment. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to issue orders to the several claimants. Total of $8,396,565.36.
Is there a motion on that, maybe from Finance, Mr. Eckhoff? A second? Mr. Dunhill?
Polk.
We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico. Aye. Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill. Aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Andrade.
Aye.
Ms. Armour Earps.
Aye.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Aye.
Ms. Monday.
Aye.
Ms. Ripmanick-Emmy.
Aye.
Mr. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Department reports, please.
County Collector's Monthly Report for May 2023. Total cash and banking investments of $4,489,932.77. County Treasurer's Monthly Report for May 2023. At the tax operating account at First American Bank, total of ending balance of $3,849,883.37. The tax collection account at First American Bank, ending balance of $165,672.51. And the tax e-pay account at First American Bank, the ending balance of $474,376.89. Coroner's monthly report for May, total calls of 96, pending 3. Income summary report for May 2023, total of $3,993. Circuit clerk cash book for month ending May 2023, total dispersed of $312,849.09. Recorder's monthly report for May 2023, disbursement fees paid to the county treasurer of $119,270.66. County clerk's monthly report for May 2023, total of $26,099.95. Monthly building division report for May 2023, total permits 99, total fees of $42,095. Animal control monthly report for May 2023, total of $39,096 in the IPTIP building fund, $951.20. Total animals handled 63. The monthly resolution list for July 2023, total of the county of $2,080.04. And the quarterly report for the regional superintendent of schools for Kankakee and Iroquois counties is on file.
Alrighty, thank you, sir. Is there a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Swanson with a second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Get you next time, Dr. Polk, I promise.
Oh, that's okay.
Under consent agenda, if we could take a moment, read through it. If there's something that needs to come off and be considered separately, let me know. Yes, Ms. Monday.
Doesn't need to come off, but I just have a question maybe regarding the some of these. So when we look at, for instance, the Kankakee County Board of Health, these are incumbents that are just being replaced. Were there any new people that wanted to be on that? Did we get any new applicants?
Yeah, there was one, and there was interviews that were done in an executive committee, I believe.
Okay, so there was someone else besides the incumbents.
There was someone else that was interested, that was eminently qualified, just like everybody else was. That we actually had a problem this time.
Okay.
We had 4 applicants that were qualified for 3 seats,
right,
which is just the opposite of what we usually have. Is we're usually 2 applicants short of what we need, you know. So it was. We're trying to make sure that applicant doesn't slip through our fingers for the next time.
Okay.
Thanks. And by I don't think it's by statute. I think it's actually by the adoption of the referendum that there's 1 county board member that's appointed. And so this is set. There has to be a doctor, and I think there's some state law in there as well. John could correct me there, but I think it's a mixture of the 2. I believe that's the way that goes.
Good morning. By statute, the Board of Health originally was 8. I think at some point during the history of the health department in the county, maybe the statute was changed to allow 1 more individual, and at that time they did elect. So the current Board of Health is served by 9 members. 2 have to be a doctor, right. 1 has to be a dentist, and then 1 is the board liaison and county board representative. When the population of a county gets high enough, which we are not at, you could have 2 county board members, but we're half of what that would even be.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Anything else that would need to be, anything that needs to be considered separately? All righty then. Dr. Polk, do we have a motion to combine and approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second for that? I heard something somewhere. I apologize. Ms. Rebenick-Emmy, if we could get those read in the record, please.
The appointment of David D. Young to the Kankakee County Zoning Board of Appeals, the reappointment of Antonio Carrico to the Kankakee County Board of Health, the reappointment of John Schaafsma Jr. to the St. Anne Fire Protection District, the reappointment of Neely Panazzo to the Kankakee County Board of Health, the reappointment of Rodney Gustafson to the Kankakee County Board of Health, reappointment of Jim Johannick to the Kankakee County Board of Health, the agreement to approve decommissioning plan and bond in the amount of $184,150.93 for Bourbonnais 1 Solar Farm Project, setting of the Public Defender's annual salary, and adoption of amended Victims Economic Security and Safety Act, VESA, policy of the County of Kankakee Policy and Procedure Manual.
Just so everybody knows also, in that VESA resolution, it says July 6th. It should say June 27th. We'll just get that corrected. Yes, sir.
Mr. DeYoung is being appointed on the zoning board of appeals, plus he's being appointed as chairman. So is that a separate place that we're doing that, or are we doing that stated as different on the agenda? The resolution, yeah, it says appointment of David DeYoung as chairman of the Kankakee County Zoning Board of Appeals.
Delbert?
Yeah, I think last month or before that, Dave DeYoung was reappointed to the zoning board, and now he's being appointed as chairman of the zoning board.
So the agenda doesn't matter, is that right? No, the agenda matters.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure that I'm, oh yeah, it says to the Kankakee County Zoning Board of Appeals instead of as chairman of the Kankakee County Zoning Board of Appeals. Do you feel that is of substance, Mr. Coughlin, that nobody caught that?
Yes.
Because it is of substance.
It is of substance as opposed to when you're naming them to the chairmanship.
Okay, I didn't catch that. That's my fault. I should have caught it.
We did him last month, so
Yeah, he was already appointed. That's why I was looking through, because I want to make sure what the resolution is correct, but the actual agenda item is incorrect. So do we currently have a serving chair on the board to run the meetings, Del?
No, we have an acting chair, which is Dave DeYoung.
Was he the vice chair, and under
He was vice
the
chair
rules
before.
of ZBA, he can act as the chair?
Correct.
Until he's appointed next month.
He was the vice chair, or is now until he gets appointed to chair.
But for what I'm getting, per ZBA rules, the vice chair acts as the chair until the
That is
replacement is
correct.
found. So we're okay until,
Yes.
if we have any more meetings this month, which I don't think we do, but we have one maybe before.
Had one
full
last
board.
night, so
Yeah, we have one next month, I know, correct?
August 7th,
August 7th.
Yes.
So that's the day before the
day
board?
before the county board.
Okay, well, you can still run the meeting, is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice
All
chair takes over the duties of the
Business
chair.
doesn't stop because of this
Exactly.
clerical mistake.
Yeah, no, we're fine.
make a motion to amend the agenda.
No, 48 hours, that's why I asked John. Yeah, it is of substance, that's why, I had to ask. All right, so we'll go ahead and pass on that one for right now. I apologize to Mr. DeYoung, but it's really, in effect, the business can get done because he's duly appointed as serving chair. Okay, but so beyond that, we had a motion and a second, and we were reading those into the record. I'm sorry, is that where we were at?
Done.
Oh, done?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, didn't leave something on the table. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess. Aye. Mrs. Polk.
Yes, aye.
Mr. Snipes. Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield. Mr. Carrico. Mr. Eckhoff. Mr. Swanson. Mr. Featherling. Mr. Dunhill. Mr. Miller. Mr. Long. Mr. Kirkstra. Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hildebrand. Ms. Foster. Ms. Andrade. Ms. Armour Earps. Mr. Ashcraft. Ms. Monday. Ms. Rittmanick Emmy. Mr. Scanlon. Ms. Turner. Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Under PZA, if we could get the title, are these things that we would probably combine and approve, or do they? So if we can get the title of both of these read in the record, 175 and 176, and then I'll get a motion to combine and approve.
Ordinance amending an ordinance of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois for the establishment of the Kankakee County Enterprise Zone and the boundaries thereof in Kankakee is amended. And resolution authorizing the execution of an amended intergovernmental agreement to add new territory, delete territory, and amend benefits to the Kankakee County Enterprise Zone.
So is there a motion to combine and approve to start with? Mr. Hunter, Mr. Miller with a second, and then Ben will run through all of these and have a chance to ask questions. There's Mr. Nugent is here as well, and has been integral in this process. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I guess for the edification of the board, the way this works is we have an acting ordinance that we work off of as an enterprise zone. Each of the jurisdictions pass that. When we make any amendments to the enterprise zone, what we're asking you to do is to amend that existing ordinance. So essentially, it's an overwrite. The second part of this allows Chairman Wheeler to sign the executed intergovernmental agreement, which is a required companion document. So essentially, you have an ordinance an intergovernmental agreement which binds the entities, and then we have the exhibits which are up on the map. And actually, Kelly, if you can go to the next one, just for everybody to see. So the goal of this, and maybe it'd probably be better if Mayor Nugent kind of started this off talking a little bit about the reason we're all here and kind of the idea behind this, and then I'll get a little bit into the nuts and bolts of how the process works.
Yeah, excuse me. The idea for this came about because, we did an analysis of, the housing market in Kankakee County and the lack of home construction that's taken place in the county over the last 15 years. If most of you that have been around here for a while remember the early 2000s, we were building 700-800 homes a year in Kankakee County, and in 2008 that stopped, and we went down to 1 year we didn't build any houses. And in the last 10 to 15 years, we've averaged under 100 homes being constructed in Kankakee County. We're trying to kickstart that and see if there's some way that we can potentially get the housing market back in business here in the county. We looked at as different ideas, and one of the things that came up was the potential expansion of the enterprise zone. If you remember back in the 80s when the enterprise zone was first established, it was established for in order to try to bring jobs here and to try to get business to come here and locate here. And it worked. I mean, without the enterprise zone, we wouldn't have, different manufacturing facilities that are here, different distribution facilities that are here. And while we did give some tax incentive benefits in order to get them here, those companies have been here hiring people and paying now the full load of their real estate taxes over the past 25, 30 years. And, Kankakee County has turned into a county that had no jobs to a county that now has more jobs than we have people to fill them, and that's a good thing. So we're looking at the idea, is it possible to maybe use those same type of benefits in order to try to stimulate the housing market? And so we worked with the different communities to see if they had any interest. Kankakee County has 2 enterprise zones, and this is only affecting one enterprise zone. It's the Kankakee County Enterprise Zone, which consists of Momence, Manteno, Grant Park, Hopkins Park, and the county of Kankakee. And we've gone around to each one of those communities and talked to them about the possibility of expanding the enterprise zone, not only the area, but also the benefits that were being received by the manufacturers to potentially be able to be received by the home builders and the homeowners who buy new homes. And the idea was met pretty well. We've gone through all these different communities, done presentations. As of right now, Momence, Manteno, and Hopkins Park have approved the expansion in the enterprise zone. It's here, obviously, to the county today for your review and approval, and then it's going to be voted on next Monday night in Grant Park. If it's approved, what this will do is it'll give an economic incentive for people to build new homes. There'll be no sales tax on the building materials that they purchase for the new homes. There'll be a reduced or potentially no building permit fees for the new homes that they build. And the real estate taxes could be laddered in over the course of 5 or 6 years, depending on each municipality and how each one of them wants to arrange it. But it's an idea that just, it worked for the manufacturing, it worked to bring jobs here, it worked for that sector. We were hoping that we could potentially take it to another level and use it for residential to see if it would work to try to stimulate the residential market. One thing that is nice is if for some reason it doesn't work, it also doesn't cost us anything. You only give sales tax abatement on products that are bought. So if people don't come here and don't buy anything, it doesn't cost us anything to do it. If they don't come here and get building permits, it doesn't cost us anything to give them a free building permit because they're not doing it. And we also have realized that this has gone on now for almost 15 years. So it's not like we went through a little cycle and, and we're going to come back and it's going to kick back in. Right now, the 15-year cycle, nothing's really been changing. We have just not been building many homes, and we're using this to try to entice a potential larger builders to come in here and develop communities and develop, areas where we can turn some of our commuters that are coming in here, taking our jobs, and turn them into residents. And that's why this process has been started.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess it's very important to note when we were tasked with this came out of a few meetings with the Economic Alliance, with our executive committee, and to talk about what are we going to do about housing, how are we going to react to companies saying people want to come work here, but they don't have anywhere to live, our vacancy rate's super low, and so how do we make housing available? And so out of that, we started pitching this idea. And one of the things Chairman Wheeler brought forward was the idea that what about not just new housing? And what about addressing some of our vacancy issues within our community? And so the planning staff at that time took on to address vacancy within the county. So we've done a survey and assessment of vacant properties. Vacant's a very interesting term, but we're talking about properties that are dilapidated, boarded up, don't appear to have somebody living there. If somebody owns it and pays the taxes and just doesn't live there, that's not a vacancy. We're talking about properties that need to be addressed and properties that potentially could be converted. So a second component of this outside of new construction is the idea that if you expend 50% of the value, the current fair market value of the property in redevelopment costs, you could also qualify. So, flip is not a four-letter word. It's certainly a good thing for our community, and the idea that some of these houses.
Repeat that last phrase again.
That flip is not a four-letter word.
No.
So it's 50% of the current fair market value of the property expended in renovation costs would trigger this. So what we do not want is anytime anybody within the enterprise zone buys anything for their home to be incorporated, a one section of new gutter, we don't want an enterprise zone application for that. We want it to be impactful. So we chose 50% because that is a standard that we utilize for redevelopment costs within the IRC and IBC. It's what we use for floodplain numbers. So we essentially take the value of the structure, and if you invest more than half of that back into that structure, you would get the incentive the same way you would if you had a vacant lot and wanted to build a new home. So it's a way to kind of spur twofold housing within Kankakee County. We hope that it'll build our new housing stock availability, entice a regional or national builder, give them a little bit of a bump to come into our community because they've been relatively reluctant. I know some of you have seen the billboard when Ryan was in town. Ryan was working on some takeout. They're no longer doing that project because the margins aren't there for them. And so this would allow that little bit of margin, we think, but also allow people to get into housing from an affordable housing standpoint. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new 2,000 square foot home. And so when we looked at our map, and this is what I want to point out to the group, the gray area with the red hash on the map is the current enterprise zone. And so we worked with each of the jurisdictions. This is the Hopkins Park area, so we worked with the mayor of Hopkins Park and said, what areas are currently subdivided with lots that have water and sewer available or close to adjacent that you think you would want to add? And the mayor came back, and we've done several iterations of this map, but this is the final, where the mayor said, hey, this area in our zone would be great. And if you want to roll to the next one, Kelly. So okay, that's Grant Park didn't ask for any additional acreage, but if you look in Grant Park, they have a lot of acreage that's adjacent to their town where they could grow, where they just seem satisfied with what they have. In the Moments area, we added, okay, I guess Mantino area is next. We worked with Mayor Nugent to add area that, again, was adjacent to existing development areas that made sense to them. And then in one thing to note in the Mantino area, and it's just noted in your intergovernmental agreement, in order to satisfy the statute at the time that we started this process, we had to remove almost 2.3 square miles, so that way we could add all of the acreage we wanted to add. And the mayor very graciously said, we'll remove some area from North Mantino just to get this project rolling, so that way the other communities involved can have additional acreage. Since that happened, we had a 15-mile cap. When we started this project, the state has extended that to a 20 square mile cap. So we have an additional 3,500 acres available to us. So we will be able to, if new projects come up, add new territory. I will say this, typically what we would do is delete territory in one area we weren't using it and add territory if we needed it. We can always have that flexibility, but this additional 5 square miles just gives us even more flexibility. In the Mantino area, Moments area, there's several pieces that we looked at in Ileana Heights and Garden of Eden. You see kind of east of town there, and then river adjacent in Moments that we saw had some real potential value for redevelopment. And then we worked with Moments to add 2 chunks of territory, one in a Van Drunen subdivision on the west side of town, and then another one kind of behind Burcott's there. And so, and since we've done this, and I was just looking at Mr. Eckhoff, there are other areas that have already been brought up to our attention. So this is an ever-evolving thing. We really hope that this works. Frankly, we really hope this works in the county enterprise zone, and we hope that the River Valley enterprise zone would be able to adopt it at some point. But this is kind of our snapshot in time of what the map is. This is what went to the hearing, and the goal for us is to offer a variety of housing stock for people using a tool that we used very well to develop commercial industrial development, and use it just for residential. It's not that foreign from a state standpoint. Other communities are getting into this. One of the first enterprise zones I worked on 20 years ago had residential in it, and it seems like we got away from that because everybody was building houses and it was great. And now that we're not, we're getting back into it.
Alrighty, so questions from the group. I just wanted to remind those in PZA, they remember the maps that had all the red dots on it, where we went around the county and looked for the either abandoned or distressed, or again the vacant. First, defining vacant. What does that mean? You know, so that's how we built a lot of this area of where is the opportunity for workforce housing that's in the rural areas, because as mentioned, the River Valley is not, which is Kankakee, Bradley, Bourbonnais, correct?
And Herscher, yes. And
Herscher, and they're not participating in this. It's just these other areas that we have mentioned. So where can we have the biggest impact? One question I have before we go to the group is, can you use CPACE on residential, or is that only
on multi? They can use CPACE. Yeah. So it's got to be, it's big multi. It's not like 2-unit. So
okay, CPACE is an incentive we voted in here for energy efficiency. It pays. It's basically like a self-imposed assessment on your property where you access lower capital. Access to capital lower than banks can give you, basically for energy efficient type roofs, windows, that kind of stuff. It fills out a capital stack. So that's why I asked. Now, if someone's coming in to do 10 of these.
Yeah, and there's some structuring in those CPACE deals where really deal by deal would have to be presented to our CPACE vendor, and they would look at it and say, you know, maybe it was a single loan for 5 units or something along those, because maybe the easy one is if you do a 10-unit building. I mean, that's the easy way to do it. But if it was 5 units adjacent in a block, or if it were 5 units on a single lot, from a townhome standpoint, that could potentially qualify, where they could be looking at that, where again, potentially smaller platform. I mean, we haven't mentioned it yet, but I mean, this is in conjunction with the regional land bank. This is a concerted effort where everybody's looking to see how do we fix this regional kind of national housing crisis. How do we address this lack of available housing stock in so many different tranches? I mean, we're talking about the south of 100,000 to north of 350,000, and we're missing in all markets. Mm-hmm. And so how do we address it? It's a hard single tool to make, and this is why we have a lot of team members involved, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. But this one we would like to again get past here, final passage for Grant Park on Monday, and then submittal to the state of Illinois for their approval.
Questions, please. Mr. Eckhoff first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go ahead and say this is a no-brainer. It's outside the box, great thinking by everybody that's involved, and we have nothing to go ahead and lose on this. So kudos to everybody involved.
Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ben and Tim, excellent explanations. Got a couple questions with respect to the city of Kankakee in terms of them providing you with data, empirical evidence in terms of a listing in terms of dilapidated and vacant housing. Do you have that?
We have a couple lists that originated with the city that we got through Dr. Crawford at the land bank. I don't believe we have the full list. And again, it depends on how you define vacancy. IDA defines it differently than we define it. But yeah, our list that we're working off of is a county-wide list for non-municipality properties. That's the one that Dell and his team put together in driving around and making sure we had we were going through and crossing off sections on the map to make sure we covered every stretch of the county, and it took us quite a bit of time to put it together. We do not have, I would say we do not have a comprehensive list from the city. And for maybe a 2-minute aside, because this zone does not have a single parcel in the city of Kankakee, in order to add any parcels, we'd have to add the city of Kankakee. And the bigger part of that is no two zones can cross. So any area within the Kankakee zone would have to be deleted and added from the River Valley zone and added to the county zone. So I think that our efforts here is to put together, I don't want to say a pilot because we think this really can work. We put together our program, we let everybody see how it's working, and then we make a pitch again in a year or 18 months to the River Valley zone to say, hey, do you want to build an extra 100 homes that you didn't build last year? Because that's what we did. And then they would be allowed to take on, and then I would be back here as we're a member of that zone as well, doing this presentation again.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, and I appreciate all the incentives that are being provided with the enterprise zone, but another question with respect to strategies and initiatives that you're trying to pursue regarding, do you have any developers in mind, or have they been coming forward? Anything on the waiting list in terms of developers for macro projects?
We've spoken with a regional and 2 nationals. We've had them in the Alliance office to talk through kind of how you mass properties. And I will tell you, one of the biggest obstacles we've seen from them is you have to be north of 150 available parcels in order to make it work. And they don't really want to be building the roads at this point. And we didn't have the tool when we spoke with them as far as trying to subsidize some of that front end expense. The mayor's been very involved in some of these developments over the years where, if you're spending $1 million before you can sell the first lot, and so they're having trouble with that. As an example, Ryan likes to buy an existing neighborhood. When we had Scott down from Ryan, he said, that's great, but if you give me 50 lots, by the time I essentially market myself and get my projects rolling, I've run out of lots, and then that's the energy we spend. We need to then sell that other 100 lots once that ball is rolling. And so we need to be able to mass, because they're going to want to build 50 homes a year when they come in. They want to do 150 over 3. And that's the type of gravity they need in order to make that coming to town make sense. They need to make the money, obviously, but getting some of those incentives in place to help them with defraying some of that cost of subdividing land. We have some available property within our community, but we don't have what some of the western burbs saw, where you just had swaths of lots with the sticks sticking out of them and nobody to build on them. And so they're going through those properties and doing projects like that. We're trying to kind of really make a bridge between available lots with water and sewer and what we currently have.
Excellent response. Thank you.
Ms. Foster.
I just wanted to say that the Village of Hopkins Park, we're very excited about this project, and that with the gas line coming in, we see it as an opportunity for growth and development. So we're on board.
We'd love to see the tax base increase out there for public services, and this is one way to do it. Yeah. Any other? Oh, yes. Ms. Armour-Earps.
In Mantino, I see there's a lot of land out there. It's already been approved. Those people are willing to go ahead with the ones that were in the red saying, yes, we'll go ahead and sell our land to a developer. Is that my understanding, or how does that work?
Well, there's some land that's available by existing owner for redevelopment or development. But
those are like 50 lots and things like that. We don't have a large section.
We tried to pick areas that we thought made sense from an infrastructure standpoint, from a contiguity standpoint. We didn't want to add stuff that was too far out.
Right.
I haven't had a direct conversation. Maybe the mayor's had more conversations about this, but I haven't, cornered somebody to say, hey, are you willing to build 200 homes on your property? But there seems to be a willingness to sell property for development in the Manteno area. I haven't seen many roadblocks as it relates to. I can tell you on the industrial side, when we meet with people, we say we need X number of acres. Typically, we can find acreage available in those areas that are willing sellers. Some of them are already listed for sale with brokers too.
So in other words, if you have someone come in that's willing to build 150 homes, let's say, or 200, how does the infrastructure happen then? Is that something that they go back to the city with and say, we need help? Is there going to be an extra tax, or how does that all work? I mean, to build a subdivision, you need roads, sidewalks, sewer, electricity, everything. So how does that work after someone comes in and says they want to build 200 homes?
So if a developer, when we get this live, we call the national, we bring them to town, we say we have these parcels available at $35,000, $40,000 an acre. Here's the plan that was proposed in 2003 that never came to fruition because we have some of those preliminary plats. They would have to, look at their costs on that. We would say, here's our incentives on the finished product, not necessarily on the infrastructure side of it. We would potentially be able to incentivize them on sales tax on building materials for all public infrastructure. They shouldn't be paying taxes to build roads.
Okay.
And then they would be able to then even build the home, which formerly nobody has done locally with that incentive as well. And that we hope that margin makes it a little easier for them to stomach that investment on the. Okay. And then, I mean, frankly, locally, the banks are scared. I mean, and rightfully so. They don't loan out much. They're not allowing people to build 5 and 10 and 20 spec homes.
Right.
It's going to take a national builder with a little bit of capacity. We worked when I at a former stop. At the time, it was Lennar, and we did 150 in 3 years, and they were able to capitalize it. And they were the only ones. The local builders just couldn't get the banks to lend them the $1.2 million or whatever it was going to take to finish the road, water, and sewer. So really, it's about getting the tool in place and then being able to appropriately sell it. I can tell you, they were telling us there was some short. They were short when we met with them before this tool existed.
Yes, Mr. President.
I have a lot of this in my district. Probably most out of anybody. I did a lot of research on this, and I was excited when I saw how areas respond. Most builders come to town, they come from somewhere else. They bring their guys from somewhere else, and they buy the materials somewhere else. Doesn't really help them out very much. But they start buying concrete and asphalt, lumber, windows, things like that locally within the county here. You got all your lumber companies that accelerate. All local businesses have to hire more people to deliver materials and supplies. And it really seems to really work out really well if you put it on paper. So, and I wasn't a proponent at first. I went to a meeting and I got informed and I did my homework, and I really think it's a good idea for the areas that we have marked. And at one time we had 3,500 lots. Mr. Nugent, we had 3,500 lots on the books in Manteno at one time, didn't we?
Well, we had people that had spoken for land that could potentially be 3,500 lots. There was not 3,500 that were plotted, but there was
sketch plans.
There was land that was under option, and they had talked about things, but and that was in 2007 when things were really rolling. And those are kind of the lands that we are trying to add to this enterprise zone, is the ones immediately surrounding the community. Like Ben said, we don't want to go too far out. So the ones that there was interest in back in 2007, 2008, we want to add those properties in anticipation that eventually maybe somebody will come and want to do something there again. The whole landscape for home construction has changed. I mean, back 15, 20 years ago, there was a lot of local builders that were building, 5, 10 homes. Those people are, for the most part, out of business. I mean, if you don't get a large builder coming in doing, a development, other than that, you've got a handful of builders throughout the whole county that are building, 5, 10 homes a year. So you got to have some incentive to attract those, larger entities here, because they've got a lot of places that they can go, and have more volume. We've got, a lot of land. We need more people, and that's what we're hoping this will bring.
So the sales tax doesn't apply to if they buy
in another county somewhere else. That's what people don't understand a lot of times. It's just,
I think it applies.
It does apply. You don't pay sales tax. It's just that, let's say somebody buys their lumber in Cook County, they don't pay sales tax in Cook County, but so, I mean, we don't lose anything because of it, because we're not getting it anyway.
Right, you wouldn't have got it anyway.
Right.
Yeah, but they don't get the incentive if they buy it in Indiana.
Okay.
You can't give up sales tax that didn't exist.
Right.
So that I've ran into that before.
It's a plan.
Yeah, so the way the exemption is structured, it's a sales and use tax. So any jurisdiction in which we have a reciprocal use tax, which the state would collect 6.25, we don't get any use tax. We get that on our backside formulaic, but it's tax exempt. So if you're obligated to pay sales tax or use tax in Illinois, it's exempt. It doesn't matter if you buy it 50 counties away. It's just exempt from that activity, and that's that's just the way it's structured. There's not a way for anybody to say, well, we want to not do this or that. It's an entitled benefit where everyone would get it, and that's actually why it works so well, in that it's not picking and choosing. Anybody who wants to use this, if you're in those areas, if you're in that yellow area or that red area, you will be able to utilize this to improve property values. That will improve our tax base, and we'll move forward with more taxes. So fundamentally, we give up a little bit, locally potentially, and we get a lot, and then everyone else who gets taxes, we do, the libraries do, the schools do, obviously, they'll all get taxes on the property value.
And that's one of the, I think that's what we're going at. Spread the tax base out instead of piling more on the current people that are paying taxes. That's the numbers that we're trying to impact here. It's not that we want people to come experience Kankakee County and all the glories found within. That's part of it, but it's also to spread the tax base out. So it's not so much lumped on those that are paying them. So, any other questions? Mr. Hunter, second time?
Yeah, second time. Ben, what role would the MPO play with future development? Metropolitan Planning Organization, you guys.
So we in Kankakee County have a metropolitan planning organization. We're the transportation planning organization for the county. We work in the metro area. So as it relates to this, when we do our development in our long-range transportation plan, we have 3 buckets for road development, and I'm just going to work on tier 1. We look at those and grade those projects, and we utilize development opportunities as a component of the score. So if somebody's proposing a large development, we would use that in our scoring process, and then that project then moves up or down related to that as a component of their score. They get scored on capacity and congestion and safety and all of these other things, but we do utilize development as a component of our score. So it's not a large component, but I would say as we look to developing these areas, well, we don't want to invest a ton in infrastructure on the public side to make a development happen too far from town. We don't want to build a road to service a single subdivision. We want a subdivision to be directly adjacent to town or to be on an existing road. And that becomes a water conversation, a sewer conversation, a natural gas conversation, an electricity conversation, a broadband conversation, where ideally the developments are happening where we have existing infrastructure. And so that's why we looked, when we did this map and we talked to the towns, we said, what do you got? And they said, 1 block away from where we currently are, we would really like more development. And that made great sense to us. They just extend the road a little bit, and then their police and their fire and their water and their sewer are serving that. So we're not really using, from an MPO standpoint, a lot of development as a big part of the score. We're more focused on safety, congestion reduction, and upcoming greenhouse gas reduction.
Thank you.
All right. So we did, if there's no more questions, we had a motion and a second, I believe. That's all now. Let's roll call vote that, please.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Kirko.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Dunhill.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Andrade.
Aye.
Ms. Armour Earps.
Aye.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Aye.
Ms. Monday.
Aye.
Ms. Ripmanick-Emmy.
Aye.
Mr. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mayor? Let's see here. From Executive Committee, if we can get the title read in the record, please.
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois, authorizing the County Board Chairman to sign an agreement with SAQ Consulting Incorporated.
Do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Hess was on the motion. The second, Mr. Fairfield. Any questions about this? We're just continuing on through the whole legislative session. We did a toe dip in the water with our lobbyist. We had very good results. So we're going to continue on with the current legislator group. So is any questions? Yes, sir.
I just have one question, and it is in particular to 3A. 3 dealing with compensation, and then it deals with Section A. Can you help me make sense out of what this is?
I'll defer to legal counsel.
Legal counsel, can you help me make sense of what they're saying?
Regarding compensation, Mr. Snipes? 3A. Microphone. Oh, sorry. Are you talking about the compensation paragraph, Mr. Snipes?
Yes, 3A. Now, SAQ is an acronym that stands for what? Because when I read through this, it doesn't let, if somebody else was to look at this, we're talking acronyms, but they don't know what what it is. So for the record, we can state what SAQ is. I do know it's a lobby group that helps us or whatever. The problem the problem that I'm focusing on is that when you get to the month past the chairman and Willow doesn't need to be paid within, it says 30, but in parentheses it says 40 days. Generally, when you put something in parentheses, it attaches itself to what comes before. So it's just 30 days or 45 days.
Bear with me a minute while I'm reading it.
State's attorney.
We got to resolve this.
Well, the consultant is SAQ Consulting Inc. That's a corporation that serves as the lobbyist and the consultant for the county, and they're the ones that were approved approximately, I think, 6 months ago. As far as the compensation goes, they get paid $4,000 a month. They give a statement each month, and then they're due to be paid. I see what you're talking about.
Right.
There's a Scrivener's error.
That should be 30 then, or 45.
I'm not sure what the agreement was, if it's 30 or 45 days. I'm assuming it's 30 days, so that the agreement should be amended in that the designee will be paid within 30 days, and within the parentheses, that should be stricken. Instead of 45, it should be 30.
Thank you, sir. That's all.
Is there any other questions? Donnie? No? Okay. All righty. With that, I guess roll call vote.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Aye.
Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Andrade.
Aye.
Ms. Armour Earps.
Aye.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Aye.
Ms. Monday.
Aye.
Ms. Ripmanick-Emmy.
Aye.
Mr. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under finance, if we could, I guess there's a short title, but
Resolution of the County Board of Kankakee County, Illinois regarding setting juror compensation.
Need a motion there on that. Mr. Eckhoff was the one who kind of brought this forward. Mr. Long with a second. Do we have the sheet that had all the estimates in their packet? Okay, you all should have the estimates in your packet now. This was run by the courts, so you see the increases there. It is, you know, obviously it's not substantial in terms of a overall budget, but it is an increase, and so you know what we're doing here. So any questions about those numbers? It would take effect on the first of the new budget year as to not impact this year's budget, because we'd have to do budget amendments and all that other stuff this year. This would just take effect, I believe, on the 1st of December. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it should be. Any questions, though, please? All righty, you probably should do a roll call vote.
Mr. Hess.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes. Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker. Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand.
Aye.
Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Andrade.
Aye.
Ms. Armour Earps.
Aye.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Aye.
Ms. Monday.
Aye.
Ms. Rittman-McEmmy.
Aye.
Mr. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. Under ARPA, lost revenue on the consent side, we could get all of the titles read into the record, I believe, and then we could run through each one, voice vote them, and then roll call the whole thing together. Is that okay? So we're not roll calling every single time. Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, if we could read that whole section under social services into the record, and then we'll go through them. Thank you.
Authorizing expenditure from fiscal year 2023, Fund 98, America Rescue Lost Revenue Fund to Kankakee County Highway Department. Amending Resolution 2023-04-11-113, authorizing the expenditures of American Rescue Plan Act funds fiscal year 2023, Fund 98, Kankakee County Animal Control Building. Authorizing the transfer of funds from fiscal year 2023, Fund 95, American Rescue Plan Fund to fiscal year 2023, Fund 98, America Rescue Plan Fund, Lost Revenue. Amending Resolution 2023-03-14-78, authorizing expenditure from fiscal year 2023, Fund 95, America Rescue Plan Fund to NAACP, New Vision Food Pantry.
So again, it would be a motion to combine and approve. We'll go through Mr. Hunter, second with Mr. Long. We'll go with Ms. Foster on this one. You've already had one there. So we'll go through and either approve, disapprove, whatever we vote for individually with a voice vote, and then whatever's left, we'll do roll call because we're spending money. Any questions about that?
Okay, so we don't have to move an item.
Yes, Mr. Snipes, did you have a question?
Yes, I said
the chair did not recognize you, sir. You just started talking.
No, you just asked the question, so I'm answering.
No, per the county code, a member must rise, and we know rise doesn't mean stand up. It means be recognized by the chair.
We're familiar with that.
Everybody starts talking at once.
Let's not go. You're talking, you recognize. All I'm saying is
the chair does not recognize you. How about that?
Listen, you can do what you want to do. Let's play or either continue on with the business of the day. So I need to know. Can we move one?
Do you respect this body at all?
I'm asking you a question because you're saying you're doing it a different way. So I need clarification on whatever it is you claim you're doing.
I can't clarify it any more than I just did.
Well, good. So now I can ask the question because I need some clarification on what you just said. We are not removing these items like we usually do. We're just going to go through them each, and then if we decide we want something removed, we can remove it. Mr. Chair.
I've already answered that question. Is there anybody else that has any
No, you haven't answered. If I asked the question, you haven't answered to my ability. Other than that, I'm going to remove 180 and 182.
Oh, Lord, here we go again.
180 and 182, we have a motion to combine and approve that's already been made.
Yes, but again,
your motion is out of order, sir.
No, it's not out of order because I had to step to the restroom. So
it's
when I
very
got
much
back,
out
we're
of
still
order.
in the deliberation.
Mr. Snipes.
I'm still saying.
Mr. Snipes.
180 and 182.
Alrighty, we haven't read in the record. We have a motion to combine and approve that is in control of the floor. So the first one is the County Highway Department. Steve is here in case there's any questions, but you see in your packet that is for the traffic signals on the Armour Road project. So the Opticon, so they can turn the flashing lights on. That's part of what we're doing, and that's out of ARPA. So do we have a motion on this item alone? We'll go with Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Scanlon with a second. Any other questions about that one? Voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Nay.
Those opposed, same sign. There's one nay. The second item, which has been in the record, read in the record, it's the animal control building. And we need a motion to approve this one to start with. We'll go with Ms. Weber and Ms. Monday with a second. That has been clearly laid out in the committee meeting. We've talked with board members who have met with me individually. The consensus was that to use the non-property tax derived revenue that we got from COVID money, basically found money, to cover off the cost overruns in terms of labor and in materials that everybody's experiencing. So that was the general gist of this, is to cover for that, and then we should see no more adjustments. We have the contingencies, taken care of. So we have money in there in case we, like we said, we run into something in the ground we got to remove within reason. If we move on this, we should be able to have this building done. We're looking at May of next year, open and running. So we have a motion and a second.
Discussion.
Questions about any of these things, Mr. Eckhoff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out that we did not go ahead and increase the bond. The bond stayed the same, and it's going to be paid for with animal fees. So just wanted to make sure that was out there.
That didn't change. Nope. Correct. Mr. Snipes had a question.
Okay, the 70% that they're talking about of additional ARPA money that we're putting up on to this particular project, is that somewhat correct?
The numbers are in here are correct. I don't know what.
Well, the issue is that it was asking for an additional 70-something% from the ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Who's they?
I guess whatever the committee is you had that oversee this, that came through the finance.
That approved this.
It came through the finance. So correct. What I'm saying is, where did that additional money come from? How did it arise from the 1.5 million that we already approved? We didn't think that this project was.
Did you watch the meeting, sir?
Whether I watched it or not, it has nothing to do with me asking the question.
Board meetings here.
The question is, why do we need an additional million or plus when we already have, and we said that it was not going to ever cost any more than the 1.5 million?
No, we didn't.
Oh, yes, we did. We said it was saving the taxpayer dollars, and go back and review your communication to this particular board when we were saving the taxpayers' dollars by going through ARPA, and we did it, and it was supposed to cost us 1.5 million from the ARPA fund, and the rest will be coming from the fees. So you saying that's not correct?
I don't have the hours required to straighten you out of what you just said. That is
well,
so far
my thing is whether you have the hours to do it or not, I'm still entitled to the answer. We're asking for more money.
You have the answer
Why?
in front of you, sir. Is there any other questions?
I don't have that. I have a second question.
Is there any other questions? First time. Second time, Mr. Snipes.
No, it should have been the first time. It was two questions, however. If this money is coming out of any ARPA funds, until the other individuals that we've already approved have been paid, I will be reserving any type of vote and voting no until such time as we pay the individuals that we have already approved in the past that hasn't gotten one dime.
Did you read the claims today?
I read them.
All the people that had ARPA claims, money, we paid them. Did you spend the time to actually do anything?
Yes, I did. I went to the people themselves and I said, of the 354,000 you claim you gave the NAACP, when these people were referred, they keep telling me I ain't got one dime. We don't have the money to spend. I said, we approved it in March, on March 14th. We still haven't received it 4 months later. So yes, I did do my due diligence.
Well, in our claims report today, it listed, I counted maybe 10, 12 people that had been awarded ARPA money that we had paid. The checks went out.
Oh, so
I don't know what you're talking
about. In March, you say everybody got their money.
No, I didn't say everybody got their money.
Well, then that's why we have a discussion today, because they didn't get their money.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is it's the yearly thing. Steve, can you explain the yearly ARPA transfer that we have to do for lost revenue?
For the
Is this on?
It's on.
Okay.
You're just told.
For the federal regulations for the ARPA funds, we get up to 4 calculations, 1 a year. We use our annual completed audit to do the calculations. This is number 3. It moves from the ARPA funds over to lost revenue, and it doesn't restrict it. It actually opens up the money as far as what the board can use it for. And so this is number 3, transfer number 3 that we've done since the beginning when the ARPA funds arrived.
There'll be one next year, probably.
One more.
One more.
Next year.
Any questions for Steve about that? Okay, so we need a motion. Mr. Eckhoff, a second. Ms. Parker, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's more of a functionary step. The last item, New Vision Food Pantry. It's been read in the record. You have the information in your packet. So we'll start with a motion to approve, and I'll start with we have to get a motion on the floor first. Motion to approve, Ms. Andrade. Second, Ms. Foster. Mr. Hunter, do you have a question?
Yeah. What do you have in your possession, Ms. McCarty, that we discussed? What do you have in your possession?
Not sure I understand your question.
What documents do you have in your possession that we discussed? That require signatures?
Oh, yeah, I have the updated contract. Once this is approved, the contract matches up to the changes, to the amended changes.
And those contracts are for whom?
The contract is with the county, the NAACP, and New Vision Church.
Thank you very much.
Correct. NAAC is part of this because they are GATA certified. There needs to be a GATA certified partner in the endeavor. That's one of the reasons we tried to get those folks partnering with smaller folks as far in terms of organizations, charities to partner on these types of projects. Any other questions for Mr. McCarty, Mr. Snipes?
Hey, I noticed that we approved it. This on, it doesn't feel like it's on, but I guess it is now. In March 14th, this county board voted for $7,500 with the Morningstar, $7,500 with New Vision as far as rental assistance was concerned. And then it was $51,000 in the food pantry. Now, that was approved by this county board under whatever that current contract was, which meant that that money should have been distributed to them. Now we have an amended motion, which it comes 4 months later. So these people who are going through the summer, as far as the food is concerned, is coming out the pockets of the church and other folks, donations that they receive. And they're a 501c3 entity. So the supplemental food, even though they feed them all year, is definitely during the summer because kids are out of school. So from March of when we approved this, they should have had a check by April. However, we got all this amendment coming up, and I don't need another amendment coming up because I want to find out that these checks are going to be distributed to these individuals so that the money can go in and help feed the poor and indigent or the low income or those individuals that meet the income guidelines when it comes to food, with the church's none. So as a result, that these kids that will otherwise be hungry will be fed, and that the rental assistance out there will be. I know KCCS, I know Catholic Charities and the others basically doing, but we have provided, had two.
Mr. McCarty, you're under no obligation to respond to any of this right now.
You don't have to respond to me, you will, and on where are these checks?
Maybe I won't. You don't tell me what I'm
young man.
Young man, am I some relation to you?
Young man, you don't have to be related to me for say young man, unless you want me to say something else. The dollar amount that's coming from that we approved as the county board, once we approve it, it's done. So why are we wait 4 months on?
No, that's not true.
It is done.
Signed contract.
Please.
It is done as far as the motion.
Please. Yeah. He has the floor.
Okay, it is done as far as the motion. We approved it in March. We are now 4 months. These individuals have not got money, so we're amending the resolution 4 months later. It wasn't done in April, it wasn't done in May, it wasn't done in June, it's now before us in July. So the thing is, the resources have not been expended. And we need to make sure that when we amend this contract, they're getting the money. That's what I'm asking for, so that the people can be benefited.
You can't hear what the hell.
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, God, thank you.
Steve, Mr. McCarty.
It's actually, Mr. Snipes, this amendment is actually more beneficial to the recipients. The original resolution said reimbursement.
Yes.
It made them, it made them spend the money first before we provided the money. This now gives them half of the food up front on this in 23, and then the second half in 24. 22,000 now instead of, so they don't have to spend 22,000 to get 22,000.
Right. I understand that.
We're running it instead of making them come back with receipts.
And I understand that. The problem was they was already spending money, and even if they did give their receipts, it appears that the money wasn't there. We asked for the money and it wasn't there. So
The money was always there.
it was never given.
Because it's reimbursement only.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. So we ready for a voice vote?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a motion and a second for the combine and approve? Roll call vote.
Mr. Huss.
Aye.
Mrs. Polk.
Aye.
Mr. Snipes.
Yes, so the money being spent immediately.
Mr. Snipes.
Young lady, I'm not talking, you turn around.
Mr. Snipes, your vote, please.
It'll be aye.
Thank you. Mrs. Weber.
Aye.
Mrs. Parker.
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield.
Aye.
Mr. Carrico.
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Mr. Featherling.
Aye.
Mr. Donnell. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkstra.
Aye.
Mr. Hunter.
Aye.
Mr. Hildebrand. Ms. Foster.
Aye.
Ms. Andrade.
Aye.
Ms. Armour Earps. Mr. Ashcraft. Ms. Monday.
Aye.
Ms. Rittmanick-Emmy.
Aye.
Mr. Scanlon. Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler.
Aye. Motion carries. So you see how that breaks down? Look forward to having this moving, get the freezer installed, and I will call out it's food and food service so that people know that if there's paper plates and forks and serving tins because they do hot food, that's another allowable amendment that we put in there, because before it could only be food. Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, just to clarify some things. This county board, the chairman, members of the evaluation team, interfacing with the NAACP and New Vision, ongoing conversations regarding their assistance. I think Mr. McCarty's explanation as to what transpired would be to the benefit of New Vision, not reimbursement, not reimbursement, not reimbursement. You may recall that ARPA funds were utilized for existing programs, not new programs. New Vision has had that particular program for some period of time. So the children, the people, and the community have not gone without foods or those kind of services which we have approved for the ARPA funds. So it's a misnomer to indicate that we have been derelict in terms of providing the necessary resources to New Vision and NAACP. There have been countless number of phone calls, meetings, discussions regarding the assistance that has been provided to those entities that we just approved. And again, kudos to the chairman and to the individuals on the evaluation team and the members of the NAACP and New Vision who have utilized their time and effort to provide this finished product as the chairman has indicated and Mr. McCarty has indicated. Thank you again.
Mr. Hendrickson, do we have some openings?
one opening on the McGillivray Special Drainage District, one opening on the Kankakee River Valley Forest Preserve District Board, one opening on the Caberry Area Fire Protection District, one opening on the Essex Township Fire Protection District.
Any new business today? Mr. Long. Sorry, there you go.
Number 7.
You got it.
I don't want to extend our meeting any more than we have to here today, since we've gone pretty long. But I'd like to introduce an idea. You know, my wife and I spent a lot of time in the building that's pictured right above Mr. Wheeler's head. And if you look in that picture, you can see the antennas that we used to use from the 70s on that building and the framework that held them. I would like to introduce an idea that maybe we pass on to the Historic Commission or our building and grounds people about removing the framework that used to hold the antennas and replacing it with an object. It could be a flag, it could be a weather vane, it could be just removing the framework from the building and you know, just to improve the looks. They're no longer use for the framework. There are no antennas or radios that are operating in the courthouse. I think it's time to take that framework down.
Sounds like building and grounds to me.
That works for me.
Chairman, we're here there, so I'll put courthouse dome antenna. Okay.
Framework. Yep.
Framework. Okay. And then, if I could, would it be okay if we included automatic lighting so we can change the colors of the lighting?
Absolutely.
By flipping a switch, then instead of having someone go change all the light bulbs in the building?
That would seem like a better use of time, yes.
Yeah, we're just a step away from different colored candles. You know, I mean, seriously, it's I know that they can do that. Would it be okay we look into the cost of that as well and kind of bring that to building and grounds? I love when city does that to the library. It looks wonderful, especially all the different colors of the days that we are out
There's
there,
different things to celebrate, and the courthouse is the main framework of our county.
Good idea. Any other new business? Yes.
Yes,
Parker.
I
Go,
would
Ms.
like
Parker.
to make an,
Ms. Polk, go ahead, please, and I'll come back.
okay, I would like to make an announcement and thank the board, ladies on the county board, that are going to participate in the fashion show that we're trying to get money for Harbor House. And that's Mrs. Andrade, Miss Monday, and Mr. Snipes. He's not a lady, but he's going to help us with the fashion show. And also Mrs. Carol Weber.
What's the date and time, location?
Quality Inn, July 23rd. Doors open at 1:30. We're having a buffet dinner. Tina Turner will be visiting us, the Chicago Tina Turner. And
beyond the grave. Sorry.
From the grave.
Sorry. Now, where can they get tickets? Where can people get tickets? And I'm sure the beneficiary is the MLK Foundation. Is that the
right,
beneficiary?
right.
Okay.
See me, or you can either talk to Miss Monday.
Okay. They know.
And definitely Carol Weber.
And also Harbor House, correct? Is also a recipient of that, because as we know, Tina Turner was in an abusive marriage, so.
Right.
All right, good deal. Ms. Parker, I guess, and then Ms. Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder that Building and Grounds, it's canceled for this Thursday.
Yeah.
So I have this and a note here for the August meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Right. Ms. Weber?
We've all received this county recorder.
Microphone, sorry.
County recorder, a Kankakee County Resource Fair that's coming up. Just a reminder for all of us that it'd be good to attend that on July 29th at the Olivet Warming House.
Sure, we'll have a presence there for job opportunities, e-waste, and I'll be there with maps of the dredging area, the latest maps, should I say. So we'll have an update in highway and waterways on where that's at right now. So it should be a great event, actually. Backpacks for kids. I mean, it's going to be a lot of people there. So you're going to be there? Oh, well, Dan's going to be, so. Yeah, it's required reading. Any other new business? Old business. Old business? Nope. Mr. Snipes? Nope, Mr. Snipes had his hand up for old business.
Young lady, thank you one more, oh God, I don't disrespect you, and I will tell you again, don't disrespect me. Point of clarification that I had no problems with the disbursement. I had a problem with the timing. I agree with Steve. The latter part was great. Not that Steve McCarty. That the amendments were great. However, the timing was off. We should not have waited from March. We did hold up fundings and stuff to these agencies that provide funding by waiting till July. We should have did it in April, so that way they could have benefited.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Long, second. Ms. Tarker, all those in favor say aye. Aye.